the argument that the federal government is too large. Projected federal deficit for fiscal year 2010 is estimated to be $1.17 trillion. As a senator, what would be your priorities as far as cutting the size of the federal budget and reducing that deficit? Specifically, what federal programs would you see as most worthy of spending cuts?
So let's understand the context of the annual budget, meaning how much we spend in 1 year. It's $3.8 trillion. We're going to bring in roughly about $2.4 trillion. So we're leaving about $1.4 in the earlier projection. Sounds like our revenues are coming up a little bit from those are updated numbers. But basically, $1.2 trillion we're borrowing. This big chunk here is equivalent to most of the entitlement spending. So 2/3 of the budget roughly, plus interest on the debt, encompasses all the money we're going to bring in. So we're borrowing everything else to run the government. So where do we begin? We have to address entitlements. This can has been kicked down the road for so long and ignored that I believe it's part of what is igniting a movement across this country to take back our country, to put us in fiscal order, make sure that we are living within our means. So the two biggest proposals that I will bring forward, number one, we have to look at privatization of Social Security again. President Bush tried it and failed. What does that mean? It means that America wasn't ready then, but it has to look at this issue because it's a legalized Ponzi scheme today. Younger workers have to start putting money in their own private savings account that they own and understand that long-term Social Security may not be there. It may have to be means tested in the future or something like that. We have a pact with workers 50 years and older who basically will get retirement, but they have to realize that we're going to have to raise the retirement age to 70. We're going to have to look at the growth of programs over time and try and live more within our means. We have a shrinking number of workers trying to support a growing number of retirees. So it doesn't pencil unless we take dramatic reform in those entitlement programs. Medicare, I put forward a proposal and a plan to challenge the current system by allowing a big state like Texas to take over their own program. They would actually collect the taxes, they would hold them, they would deliver the Medicare services instead of having the federal government in and managing them. When states do more, it's more efficient. Today there's $150 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare alone. Tens of millions of dollars are going to organized crime, according to the Center for Healthcare Transformation. So we have to do some real solutions to the big part. Then we can address cutting spending overall dramatically, 10% across the board for those remaining problems, so we can start to live within our means and turn over a prosperous nation to future generations.
We have entire departments within the United States government that probably should never have existed in the first place. First among them would be the U.S. Department of Education, which I would seek to get rid of entirely. $47 billion a year. That's what that department costs us. That's what we pay for the federal government to tell us how we should run our education system here within the states. An education system is sometimes described, perhaps accurately, perhaps not, as the last bastion of state sovereignty. We've got to get rid of it. We've got to get rid of every scrap of legislation that goes along with it that puts the federal government's nose into the classroom, a classroom that belongs to teachers, to parents, to students, to local and state government officials, not to Congress. There are other departments that are perhaps less obvious, but that still intrude into areas that historically have been understood to be the appropriate domain of state legislation, not federal. Housing and urban development, labor, agriculture, energy. Almost all of the activities of these departments deal with enterprises that are discretely local, distinctively local, intrastate. They don't involve interstate or international transactions of any kind. They take place in one state at one time. Those are things that our friends in the legislature are best equipped to regulate, not the federal government. I'd get rid of those too. So you eliminate those 5 departments, you save about $150 to $165 billion a year. It's a good start. To finish the job, you're going to have to get to the entitlement programs. To do that, we have to start looking at raising the retirement age. We have to start re-indexing the payout of Social Security benefits based on inflation rather than cost of living, all while holding current Social Security beneficiaries harmless. Then we have to hand over Medicaid once and for all for the states. It's already run by the states. Medicare ought to be next. Get both of those programs off the federal books, and we can balance our budget.